So now we're going to start with step 19, and as you can see, we are now on to bag C, and that's going to take us through 19 to 34. So here is bag C, and you can see it's the oil. We've got some springs, you got a lot of the O-rings, etc., etc. So I'm going to open this up and get all the parts we need to start building the shocks. So as you can see on this step, it says make 4, and I've already got the piston rods here. I mean, they're the correct ones, so there's 4 of those. And then we have 8 of the O-rings, which they're saying the red O-rings, so there they are. And then, of course, we've got the damper oil, and the kit comes with soft, which I'll use. We'll see how that goes. And it shows that we need to put a little bit of the damper oil onto the O-rings, and then damper oil onto the shaft rod itself. And then we're going to be putting it through, and I've got to cut up these X3 pieces. So I'll get those, and I'll get some of the X1s and the Ys. So I'll get the parts together. And then it's showing you, you've got to be very careful with the piston rod, and they're showing you a pair of pliers with something that you can, make sure that it doesn't scratch it. But I said this in a different one. I actually have these shock pliers, and it means that you can put the piston rod, like as an example, right through there, hold it tight, and now you can put as much pressure on it as you want, but it's the same shape as the rod. So this is going to actually protect it anyway, just by using proper shock pliers. And for me, it's the best thing I ever got, because it just makes the job so much easier. Anyways, I'm going to grab the other plastic parts that we need, and then we can get started on this. So these parts actually come in their own plastic bag, and everything's there. So I'm just going to get them all off the tree, clean up the burbs, etc., and then we can start building. Okay, so let's put one of these together. So first of all, we need to put damper oil onto these O-rings, and they're going to fit in there. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to put some on here. Kind of flip it all around. You can see the oil is on it. Put one in. Then we grab one of the other O-rings. Put some oil on that. Flip it over. It's a bit of a messier job, but you're just trying to lather it a bit. Put that O-ring in there. There we go. I'll just wipe off my hands a little bit. So then you can see that once you've put the 2 in, you can actually put on the end cap here. So we're going to screw on the end cap. So there we have one. End cap is on, O-rings are in. But we need to now take this and put oil on it as well. Just lather it up a bit. And then we take the one we just finished, and we're going to put it down and through the hole. And I mean, I can feel it's very smooth just because of the oil and the O-ring. But what we have to also do, and I'm just going to wipe my hands down a little bit here, is that there's this X3 that has to go on, which I'll put it all the way, and then we have to put this on the end. So what I'm going to do is grab my handy dandy shock pliers, I've got it nice and tight. And now I can take this end bit and screw it in. And because they're designed for this, makes it super easy. So that is now at the end. So now they are ready, or it's ready for the next step, which we'll do next. But that's how it's going to look in step 19. So I'm going to make the other one here. I've made a couple. I'm going to make the other one, and then we'll move on to step 20. Okay, so let me show you how to do the oil-filled shocks. So we put on a little bit here just to make it nice and smooth and kind of seal the O-rings. But to do the oil, we need to pull this down all the way. And then we're going to fill the cylinder with oil. And we're just going to fill it and fill it. Now, it's pretty much to the brim, but we're doing this on purpose. So now we're going to slowly move this up and down. The idea being that we need to get rid of all of the air bubbles. Because the air, you don't want air in the oil. In order for this to work, you want this to be nice and smooth. So you want to get all of the air out. So you just keep doing this over and over again. And you can actually feel the oil if it's got air inside. Because it'll, instead of it feeling smooth when you pull or you push, it'll almost like do a little bit of a jump. Because the air's meaning it's not got a nice seal. So you can see we had bigger air bubbles in there, and they're not there anymore. So this feels pretty good now. So what we do, because we overfilled it technically, and that's okay. We take one of these rubber boots, and you're going to see the oil is going to overflow, which is why I've got this paper towel to soak up the oil. And once that's on tight, we're going to take the cap and tighten that on. Just tighten it all the way. Now, I'm just going to take this and just rub it again just a bit. Make sure there's no extra excess. And then there we have an oil shock. Now you'll notice that I can't completely close it because it wants to push it back out. And that's the cool thing about oil-filled shocks, which is why they're a lot better than a regular spring damper, because there's actually pressure built into the shock because of that oil. So when you let go, there's air at the top which wants to push it back down. And that's so when these are actually on the car, it's going to have so much better shock absorption than a regular damper. So I'll go ahead and finish off making the 4 shocks, and then we'll move on to step 21, which is actually assembling them with the springs. Okay, so moving on to step 21, we are going to assemble the rear dampers. Now, what you're going to see here is that you can adjust the spring tension using these spacers. Now, each shock came with a tree like this. So you can see that when we were building the shocks, I had a couple of pieces off of this tree. And then for what we're doing right now, we're going to need this piece for the bottom, and then these 3 pieces are for adjusting the tension. Now what I've decided to do with this is we're going to go with X6, which is the medium one. So based on this, we would end up taking off this one, which I've already done here. So I'm going to show you how this is going to go together. So I'll grab one of the shocks that we just built. You see that we need these metal ball connector pieces inside, and in order to get them in, I've kind of chosen to use the pliers mostly. There we go. So there's one. And then we do the same on the other. And I found with this one, it was almost easier to just put it down and push. And there are the 2 ball connectors in place. Now, from then on, we're going to grab the spacer, which goes at the top. Then we have the spring, and then you just pull it tight and put that on at the bottom, and then it clamps down. And you'll see the little piece down below, it'll eventually just stay there at the bottom, and it's just so that the travel, I think it's just adds a little bit of protection. But this now is complete, and I can feel quite a bit of tension in this, even though it's the medium setting. So this is great. So there you go, there's one shock, and I actually already did the other one. So the rear dampers are finished, and we'll move on to step 22. So here we are, step 22. I've pulled the screws and the washers together, and we have the 2 shocks. And now we're going to attach this to the chassis. So this is cool. Now we'll be able to put the shocks on. So as you can see here, we're going to put the screw through the bottom of the shock right here, then a washer, then it goes into the top piece of those rear suspension arms. So it's going to sit here. So we'll just put that on now. So put that through. We put a washer on at the other side, and then it's going to go into here. Now, as this is a tapping screw, I'm going to need to put a little effort into there. It's not too bad. So that's nice and solid, and then we'll do the same with the front. So we'll grab a screw, put that through, grab a washer, and then this one, because we have to push it in just a bit because the shock doesn't sit at full extension. So we're going to push this in a bit and then fit it into here. So I'm going to use my thumb and middle finger to kind of push it together so that I can get the screw started. And there we go. So there is our first shock installed. Okay, so 22 is now complete. So there we go. Both shocks are now on. Looking really good. So we'll move on to step 23, which is attaching or assembling the front dampers.